Good afternoon, Council. I'll call to order our meeting of Monday, June 24, 2024, and we'll start with the reading of the land acknowledgement. Councillor Houston, over to you.
Thank you. For more than 15,000 years, the First Nations walked upon and cared for the lands we now call home. Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Ojibwe, and many others who were families, friends, and communities the way we are today. The town of Collingwood acknowledges the Lake Simcoe-Nottawasaga Treaty of 1818 and the relationship it establishes with the original inhabitants of Turtle Island. We acknowledge the reality of our shared history and the current contributions of Indigenous people within our community. We seek to continue empowering expressions of pride amongst all the diverse stakeholders in this area. We seek to do better and to continue to recognize, learn, and grow in friendship and community, nation to nation.
Thank you. I'm now looking for a motion to adopt the agenda. The motion is that the content of the council agenda for June 24, 2024 be adopted as amended. And the amendment is the addition of item 5, Provincial Regional Governance Review. Councillor Baines has moved that and Councillor Potts has seconded that. Any comments? All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest today? If you find yourself in that position, please let me know at that time. We're going to start today with a presentation. It's the kickoff for the Town of Collingwood, Town of Blue Mountains Joint Multi-Use Recreation Feasibility Study. And we'll start with Acting Director Cubitt, and then we'll hear from Colliers. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. We are pleased to be bringing a presentation to you today from our colleagues at Colliers Project Leaders. It's intended to be a higher level introduction to what our community can expect from this assessment that we're doing with the Town of Blue Mountains. We have already heard this presentation at this morning's council meeting at the Town of Blue Mountains, so you're getting a duplicate so that everyone is equally informed and knowledgeable. And this is an opportunity to ask questions and provide us your feedback. And I would like to turn it over to Kate and Dean from Colliers.
Dean, I think perhaps you're on mute. Technology is good until it isn't. Yeah.
Your Worship, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Dean, would you like me to start us off and jump in when we can hear you? Okay. Yes, indeed. Technology is wonderful when it is working. So, well, good afternoon, Your Worship and members of Council, and thank you very much for the opportunity for us to be a part of your meeting today. As was shared, the purpose of today's touch point is just to get to know, for you to get to know us and to introduce the work that we're delighted to be supporting you in the months ahead as we explore the possibilities for a multi-use recreation facility or facilities. So I'll turn now to the next slide, and thank you for whoever is advancing this in the background. That's wonderful. So today we'll do a couple of things. One is just introduce our team again, so that when you see emails and communications and so on coming from us, you can put a face to the name. We'll talk a little bit about the project as a whole, and then emphasize a couple of things in terms of the approach, particularly those immediate next steps, where we are hoping to be able to connect with you and with your residents in very short order. So we'll talk a little bit about what you can anticipate coming up next. I see Dean is back on. Dean, do you want to? Okay. We can see Dean. I can see that he's talking. Okay, we'll keep going. All right, so if we could go to the next slide. And one more. Thank you very much. So these are the four kind of core team members at Collier's project leaders who will be supporting you through this work. Although I know you haven't heard from him yet, you've seen Dean, who is the project lead. He's a managing director at our infrastructure advisory practice, which the rest of us are all a part of, where we're delighted to be supporting lots of public sector clients and municipalities across the country on exactly this kind of work. Hopefully building an expertise on these kinds of explorations that can be very useful to you. And then along with Dean, you've got myself, Kate, Christina, and Emma, who will be supporting various parts of the project. A lot of my background is in public engagement. So I'll be playing a particular role on the consultation. Again, we'll talk more about this later on in this meeting. Christina has a huge amount of expertise in terms of project management and making sure that from beginning to end, we're delivering this to your expectations. And then Emma has real analytical strength that she'll be bringing, particularly when we get into the more nuanced and details part of exploring the options ahead. So the four of us you can expect to see and hear from over the coming months. And again, where we need to, one benefit of working with Colliers is we've got a large group of colleagues with highly varied expertise that's very relevant to this work that we may be bringing in as well as we need. Okay, the next slide, please.
So, Kate, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I fixed it.
Something worked.
All right, perfect. I apologize, folks. I'm jumping from technologies here today. Would you like me to pick it up from here, Kate?
Go ahead. Yeah, sorry. Let's go to the next slide. Dean can take it from here.
Okay, so just to bring everybody to a sort of a common place on all of this, what we're really trying to do here is get out into the community and get a deep knowledge and understanding of what are the opportunities as well as what are the community needs as we think about recreational as well as library facilities for both the town of Collingwood as well as the town of Blue Mountains. It's not a big surprise probably to anyone that's on the call or in the meeting here that both of the communities are growing at a pretty rapid rate. So the communities as they have been historically leading up to where we are today are going to look different as we move forward into the future. So the intent of the exercise here, as I said, was really about, getting an understanding of what those needs are. But our methodology and our approach is very much anchored upon deep engagement within the communities with all of the stakeholders that we can take audience with to understand what these opportunities and needs are going forward. Next slide, please. So the project profile, there's really about a half a dozen criteria or success metrics that we've been thinking about as we've been framing this up. So at the top of it, understanding what the current market and the existing conditions are, what's there in the way of land, current facilities, programming, different elements that are there. Understanding the needs of the end users from the recreational community and the library community at large. Facility benchmarking is a really key piece in this. So what we intend to do as we get deeper into our program of work, we're going to look at other potentially similar facilities that have been previously developed in Ontario, as well as across the country to try to understand, what worked well, what type of programming went in there, roughly what order of magnitude capital is required, what is needed for annual operating to sustain the facilities, a little bit maybe around staffing and some of the other attributes of the facilities. We're going to conduct a preliminary location analysis, what actually makes sense with the parcels of the land that might be available from each of the communities. We're as important in all projects, we're going to try to understand some of the financial aspects of the project. At the different levels of government, what types of grants or grant instruments might be available to financially support this project? And then the other thing that we're going to put our eyes on is we're going to look at some governance models for other similar projects where it was more than one municipality coming together, and how does that work now that they've operationalized these buildings? Next slide. And I'm going to give Kate back the floor.
Next slide, please. All right, so Dean has shared sort of the various components of this study as a whole, but the initial, the foundation, and the piece that we'd like to focus on today is this first stage around consultation. So there's been a wonderful collaborative effort between municipalities and between libraries in shaping what we understand the task here to be, which is really about listening to residents about what are their needs. And of course, as you know very well in your work, not all residents are the same. People don't have the same needs or preferences or ideas about what they would like to see in their community. So delivering to you sort of the most nuanced and where there are patterns and differences in the community, giving you a really full picture about what we mean by community need, and that recognizes that younger residents versus older residents, someone who's lived their whole life in the community versus someone who's just moved to the community, they may have different expectations. So the first stage of this work is going to be listening, and there will be a few different vehicles that we use to do that. We often talk about the sort of spokes on a wheel. So at the center of the wheel, we have a core bank of questions, things that we're interested in hearing from residents about, and then there are many different spokes or many different ways that residents can provide that feedback. So some of the tools that we'll be using will be an online survey where it's advertised and made available through all of the partner, so the municipal websites, library websites that already have a fair bit of traffic and already are well known to the community. So we'll be promoting them there. But also you will expect to see the project being talked about at existing gatherings where groups of residents are already coming together, for example, farmers markets and opportunities like that where people are already gathering, and it's an opportunity for us to be hearing from residents too. So we're designing a process as we speak that includes sort of tailored ways of making it as easy and accessible as possible to hear from as many residents as we can. We've also spent some time thinking about what are some of the important perspectives that we create sort of different opportunities for hearing. So for example, interviews or focus groups. And this would apply to groups like where there is an organized community of people engaged in a particular sporting activity, for example. They would have an idea about what kind of gaps there are with the current facilities that are available, where do they see the sort of growth in future demand. So we will be doing more focused discussions with groups like that. We also would like to hear directly from you. So within the two municipalities and the libraries, there are people like yourselves who have a sort of unparalleled perspective on the community. You're hearing from residents every day. I suspect each of you have a pretty good idea about what the current gaps are and where you're seeing increases in demand. So one of the early steps, I think through the wisdom of the project team, the idea was we would have this introductory conversation today, so you get to know us, and then we'll follow up in fairly short order with an individual interview request to each of you. And if you are open to having a conversation with us, that would be a great opportunity for us to hear from you about what you see happening in the community, where you see those needs are, and also doing it early enough in the process so that we can use some of what we hear from you to design the consultation and process ahead. If we go to the next slide, please. Yeah, so this, the information that we gather through this listening exercise really sets the foundation for the work ahead. Dean has already given you an overview of some of the things that will come later on in the study. And some of the details of this may, of course, be shaped by what we hear from the public over the next couple of months. So if we could go to the next slide. So, and I'll put a strong caveat on this. So this is the original work plan that we started with. It sort of gives you an idea of the sequencing of things that will happen. And importantly, as you can see, the council check-in, the meeting today, is quite high up on the list. And then we will head into a consultation stage. Now, I wouldn't treat this as being written in stone. We know that it's important, for example, that we span summer months and into the fall on the consultation. We've been hearing that there are key gathering opportunities that happen at various moments. So some of these dates will shift based on what we've been hearing from the project team, and I suspect what we hear in the interviews from you. But all in all, it gives you an idea here of how we progress from the conversation today to hopefully a thoughtful and well-informed report at the end that gives you the information you need going forward. So we can go to the next slide, please. Yes. So immediate next steps. Once again, you will hear from us once again, inviting you to a one-on-one conversation. If you can find time in I know you've got busy calendars, but we would really appreciate the chance to get to hear from you to help shape the work ahead, especially useful this early in the process. This week, we're beginning a similar touch point with both library boards, and then we're working to finalize that engagement plan so that everyone's got a clear sense of who we're talking to and how and through what vehicles, and it builds on the information that we've been able to gather through these early interviews. And then we'll launch into public consultation. And right now, the engagement plan is still in draft form, but right now it's imagined to begin sort of in a more formal way at the end of July through August and into the fall in terms of when we're actually out in the field talking to members of the public. And the next slide, I think it's just open to questions. So I think here I'll turn it back to you through your worship if there are questions or things that we can clarify, but really just want to express again that we are delighted to be supporting you in this work. I suspect we're going to learn a lot about what residents are interested in, and we'll do our very best to provide that information back to you to help inform decision-making that lies ahead. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you to come and introduce yourselves as you begin this journey with our community. And Councillor Jeffrey has a question, so we'll start with her.
Thank you, Mayor Hamlin. So a clarification probably through to Acting CAO Peg, first of all. I think it's an excellent presentation, an excellent process, and I have no doubt it will be great. What I'm hearing that's concerning me, and I had heard a few weeks ago, was the notion that it was pursuing a joint build as opposed to a joint needs assessment. And so I'm hearing again through this presentation today that more we're working toward a joint build as opposed to joint needs. And I think Council was really very, very clear in its direction when we did approve the feasibility study funding that you know, in the end, it might be an outcome, but it was not the end point for us to work through all of this public consultation to get to a joint build. And I kind of heard that today, that there was this joint build at the end of this process. So I'd like to clarify that because I'd already heard it before I had your presentation, and I'm not sure where that originated, but I would just like it cleared up before we proceed. Thank you.
Okay, Dean, go ahead.
Sure, I can respond to that through the chair. I apologize. It was not intended to come across that way at all. What we're doing here is we're really very much working from a blank piece of paper without any preconceived ideas or concepts. Ultimately, when we get down to the end of this, it could be a single facility, it could be multiple facilities, could be in one location, many locations. So if there was a bit of confusion in the way that we conveyed that, then I apologize for that. But that is not the intent here at all.
Thank you, Mayor Hamlin. I just thank you for that. Makes me feel better.
Okay. Councillor Potts.
Thanks, Mayor Hamlin. Good presentation. Kind of on the tails of what Councillor Jeffries was saying. I'm sure you being the professionals, messaging is going to be important. I know that a lot of the community that's reached out to me, obviously I'm in a bit of the world of the recreation with having kids involved, and there is a big perceivement that it's a build in the Blue Mountains is kind of the key thing, and it's really, from what I've gathered, it's turned a lot of our local community off of the interest of it. So I'm hoping with the key messaging that it can be out that it is we're starting from scratch and just really trying to dig into getting information. So we'll trust that the information coming back will be very helpful for us. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Councillor Baines.
Just following up on this theme of not necessarily one facility, perhaps the answer to that could be in an FAQ. So right off the bat, you're trying to address this concept, or perhaps misperception that it's a one build study. Just a suggestion. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Well, I don't see any other questions. I'll just reiterate, I think it is a concern of the community that they may have to have a long travel to get to a recreation facility. And I certainly have been telling people that the very first step is to figure out what do we need. And since both communities have to figure that out at the same time, we're doing that together. So we're doing a feasibility analysis. So I'll just leave you with the thought, perhaps once that part is sorted out, that would be one of the touchstones with council before you get into location and the other things that were on your to-do list, because I think, we'd like to be involved in that stage of it. Okay, well, thank you again very much. And have a lovely afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the next and last item on our agenda before we consider some in-camera matters is the Provincial Regional Governance Review and Council's discussion around what should our position be. So we are going to have an opportunity for the public to address council on this issue, either by speaking in the council chambers or speaking virtually to us. Each participant will have 5 minutes. Before I turn this to the public, I'll just have a brief opening comment about where we're at. About 5 years ago, the province embarked on a consultation process with some of the growing upper tier municipalities, including the Simcoe County, about whether there should be a restructuring of any parts of the particular regions they were focusing on. There was a report that was completed, and the province at the time decided not to release the report. However, a couple of years later, in the fall of 2022, that was 3 years later, they said again they were going to appoint a facilitator, and Simcoe County was on the list. But a year after that, they said, we're not going to have a facilitator. We're going to appoint one of the standing committees of the legislature. So they proceeded to have some public meetings to get feedback. At the time they started, there were no sessions scheduled to take place in the County of Simcoe. They finished those hearings. The County of Simcoe itself, through the council discussion, asked the province to consider holding some sessions in the County of Simcoe to hear from our communities. So with that in mind, the Standing Committee of the Legislature has set a date of July 8th to hear from the County of Simcoe and its member municipalities. So last week we gathered here for a workshop that was in order to discuss what our position might be. We had some advice from Sabine Matheson on some of the matters we might consider as we might in the future enter into negotiations with the province. And coming out of that, there was a decision at this council to ask staff to come back with some suggestions as to what our position might be. And that's the motion that's before council today. So before I read in the motion, I'll just turn to the clerk. Well, maybe I'll just ask, is there anyone here in the gallery today who would like to speak to this? Okay, there's no one. Clerk Thomas, is there anybody online? Not. Okay. So then I'll just proceed right into reading the motion. Whereas in November 2022, the provincial government announced it was appointing regional facilitators in Ontario's fastest growing regions to eliminate unnecessary or duplicative barriers preventing towns and cities from hitting their housing targets. And whereas in September 2023, Minister Paul Calandra announced that the Provincial Government Standing Committee on Heritage, Infrastructure and Cultural Policy would take over the work originally proposed for facilitators, including two-tier regional governance reviews in consultation with affected municipalities. And whereas this standing committee is taking applications to hear interested parties on July 8th, 2024 in Orillia. Therefore, be it resolved that Council of the Town of Collingwood herein endorses the following as the town's official position to be articulated by the mayor or her designate. And there's a number of bullet points. The town of Collingwood has no concerns with the existing municipal structure and has a close relationship with the county and local municipalities in our area. Second, Collingwood is looking ahead. In 25 years, our population will be between 40,000 and 50,000 people, and anticipate that we will evolve within the Simcoe County structure. Thirdly, in as much as we are content to work collaboratively now, we can see a day when the town may wish for a structure with greater autonomy for town-delivered services. 4, with the many needs across our municipalities, despite positive and active collaboration, in some cases, municipalities duplicate investments in infrastructure and services, affecting how well we can serve our taxpayers. 5, we will continue as well to build collaboration with our neighboring Simcoe County municipalities, including other South Georgian Bay communities in Grey County. 6, as we move forward, the assistance of the provincial facilitator or other resources and governance could be advantageous to develop a coordinated multi-municipality growth plan as a foundation for larger investments such as infrastructure. And lastly, finally, we strongly believe that the province, county, and local municipalities must develop a new financial framework that funds and enables us where we are best placed to successfully deliver services locally. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Well, I think I'll just get this on the table first.
Clarification. I might have misheard something. I just wanted to ask. If I
Okay.
could. When you mentioned about articulated by the mayor, did you say mayor and deputy mayor?
No, I said by the mayor or her designate.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. That's okay. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Doherty, seconded by Councillor Ring. Okay, open for discussion, and we can sever these items if that's Councillor Jeffrey would like those severed. Okay.
So thank you, Mayor Hamlet. So I had the opportunity to view the workshop online, and the results outside obviously haven't been updated on what was discussed in camera. But reading this motion based on what was discussed, a saying comes to mind is just because you can doesn't mean you should. And I'm not sure that what we came up with is riveting or pointed enough that a letter couldn't cover in terms of instead of appearing before a committee. With that said, I'm not surprised at our inability to answer the question, which was, what will you be what do you want to be when you grow up? Because we haven't fully completed our strategic plan. So we're kind of in limbo with that as well. So I don't think council as a whole was in a place to have a really pointed discussion about what we would present. But I do appreciate having these severed out. I think for myself, in some cases, I would ask that a list of examples be prepared, because if we do go present and the committee asks you a question, for example, I would like to know what examples you're going with, first of all, because I think my assessment of part of the discussion was that it was more about what other people should be doing and not what we should be doing. And I think we needed to be navel gazing a little more as opposed to really pointing fingers. So I'll wait for the other points to be made while we're going through, but at the end of the day, I'd be quite happy that we just sent a letter in support of the county and begging for a new municipal growth framework. And I didn't see that anything else there was probably pointed or riveting enough to present to a committee.
Okay, I'll just say in terms of appearing before the committee, I do think there's an advantage. And the reason is, I think every opportunity Collingwood gets to stand up for any members of the provincial legislature, we should take it, because many have never been to Collingwood. And I would like them to start thinking about us as they make their decisions. So for me, any opportunity is a good one. And, but anyway, that's just on that point. Yes, go ahead. Yeah.
So thank you, Mayor Hamlin. So when you say that, I don't I guess I don't think they need to know us very well to know this. So are you anticipating expanding beyond the wording that is in this motion, or what is the anticipation of what you would be going to the committee with? Because I think what we're approving is within the context of these paragraphs. If you're thinking about something expanded, then I think we need to be privy to that.
No, my intention, if you're asking me in particular, would not be to expand exceedingly on this. We think, or I think I should say, there will be lots of opportunities to get into the nitty-gritty on how Collingwood should be looking at our future. This is just to set the base down for what we're thinking about. And obviously there's words in there like provincial facilitator and so on. I don't see this as criticizing any other level of government. I do see it as hints about what we think is important to us, such as do we need to have greater autonomy and collaboration around delivering services efficiently for our communities. Because as a government, that's our job: deliver services, deliver them efficiently and cost effectively. And that's what this is about. It says today, we have a close relationship with the county and with our neighboring municipalities here in Grey County. We can see a day as we grow that we may want to look a little closer with the province at how our services are best delivered. And that's the message that I would be delivering. Any other comments? Yes, Councillor Baines.
Just an overall comment. It's challenging to be more specific than this, but as a generality, what I like about this is the flexibility it affords us, particularly to, in the future, develop a more natural, which I think is a natural relationship. I don't want to use a more definitive word than relationship, but with other municipalities, most particularly the town of the Blue Mountains, as both communities grow. And I think that allows us, to a certain extent, both our cake and the ability to eat it too. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Doherty.
Thank you, Mayor. I also am very supportive of this motion. As articulated here, it really covers, the best of both worlds. The today world, where the services that are provided to us by the county are needed services that we likely could not do as good of a job in providing for ourselves. As an example, waste management, some of the county roads, social housing being one that's top of mind these days. But there's no denying that as we grow, we are growing in concert with other South Georgian Bay communities. Our collective needs are becoming more similar. And as we grow, we will have the ability, particularly from a financial standpoint, of looking at collaborating and taking over some of the services that are being provided by the county now and doing it more efficiently for our residents. So a long-winded way of saying, I like it the way it's stated. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Hamlin. Before I get into the detail of the resolution, I want to review about my question last meeting of whether or not an approved position can be developed in 10 days, working days, using best practice regarding public participation. While the June 20th workshop notice was given properly, there were no reports. So only a reference on the agenda to it possibly being advantageous to have an official position. In my opinion, this was because of the short time frame and possible need for urgency in completing the intended task, and these weren't known at the time. The public impression was that there would be follow-up. Now here we are, just 1.5 working days later, considering finalizing an official position with the rare approach of being used to provide access during this council meeting for the public. But this agenda also has no background materials to go with it that could, or I believe should be considered in advance. Yes, there is the video of last week's meeting, but the bulk of the actual council discussion that day was in camera. I am going to speak to that separately later, but right now in regards to public notice, one would have to ask, is this being the best practice that we've used in this process? Also, I said last meeting when council agreed that a workshop relating to the government's Bill 23 process would be beneficial, we never anticipated these circumstances. In addition, all this is occurring amongst our community-based strategic plan, as Councillor Jeffrey mentioned, update work. A council position of this nature being considered should have been developed at the outset, in my opinion, as a guiding principle for that plan. Relating back to the earlier council workshop decision, a requirement of it was to be a review of what had been presented on January 17th to the Heritage Committee at their first phase of meetings. In retrospect, links to those transcripts probably would have been beneficial because I can't review it all right now. But I'm going to just review some directly that I think are key, at least for me, that statements that were made that day. And these were by Warden Clark. A new framework for an involved planning partnership would provide clarity and stability in the housing system and reduce overlap while sinking investments in the future. He added that they'd sent studies to the committee that they felt that they should be looked at relating to this. And then the comment was that they look forward to seeing them again when they came to Simcoe County. I said last meeting that I continue to support Simcoe County's position, but there's still going to be further discussion. And actually tomorrow, I was expecting, and when that may impact my position, I will be studying that carefully in regards to Collingwood's and continue work to on a cohesive basis in preparation for any required presentation. I do, in specifics, I do have a major concern with the reference to provincial facilitator. I'm going to ask, because we talked about this last week, at the South Georgian Bay Mayor's meeting, was there input from the mayors in regards to the idea of a provincial facilitator working with us? I guess I would direct that to Mayor Hamlin.
Well, I guess it depends what decision this council would make on who they would wish to engage with. We didn't have discussions about that specifically. We did speak about who was going to come to the Simcoe County meeting on July the 8th. That was it.
There was discussion about who was going to go amongst the mayors, and anything firmed up on that, or? I think I heard the mayor of Clearview would be attending, and the mayor of the town of Blue Mountains had been suggested by our MPP that she may wish to attend. And representing the area mayors, or no, themselves. Yeah, we don't make presentations on behalf of 6 municipalities unless it comes to each council first. We're not any kind of independent government body. We meet to discuss issues of joint concern and how we could move things together along together, I should say, if it makes sense to do so. But we're not a level of government. I had suggested at the on Thursday that it would be a good idea to consider whether or not a position from the area mayors would be good to put forward. And here we are, we're saying that we should be using or suggest that a provincial facilitator should be put in charge of deciding for all these municipalities. Sorry, just to interrupt, that's not what it says.
there's no indication that a provincial facilitator at Collingwood's bequest would be making decisions on behalf of all these municipalities. So I just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Sorry. The assistance of a provincial facilitator and other resources in government could be advantageous to develop a coordinated multi-municipality growth plan and as a foundation for larger investments such as infrastructure. Multi-municipal is what I was looking at when I made those comments. So again, I specifically, I can't support that particular bullet. I also have a concern about the, and I'm not sure why, we need to include something about becoming autonomous or having our autonomy. That's a given. I mean, we certainly have that at our ability now. So I'm not in support of that particular bullet in this as well. The implications of going autonomous could be massive. You look at Peel's analysis for evidence of that. So both of these concerns are from my basis of my original concern and position taken about the in-camera. Based on what has been put forward in the resolution, none of these were discussed in open forum. So it stands right now, I can't support the resolution as presented, partly because of content, but also it needs more inputs from public, county, and the South Georgian Bay municipalities, in my opinion.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak to this? Yeah, Councillor Baines.
I understand the Deputy Mayor's point, and in a perfect world, if we didn't have this deadline put to us, I think the lesser evil is to present something that has the majority of council support rather than present nothing in order to gain the time to do what I assume the Deputy Mayor and others would feel a more thoughtful and time-taking response. But I just see that under the circumstances of the date is the date and they want something from us. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Doherty.
Thank you. I'm just responding to the Deputy Mayor's remark that we should be providing for county input to our position. And I disagree. This is a position that we are articulating in a forum that includes all of the member municipalities, plus county administration, plus the provincial facilitator. So I see absolutely no issue with this resolution as stated. This is very collaborative and honest articulation of our position.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to respond to Councillor Baines first and then Councillor Doherty. With Councillor Baines, I think Councillor Jeffrey's opening statement was completely apropos. Just because you have the ability to do it doesn't mean necessarily should. And I think that I've reiterated this a number of times over the two meetings. It's no fault of anyone's that we've been thrown this very tight time frame, and it just I'm hesitant to move forward too quickly. In regards to, I think, although Councillor Doherty felt I was saying that we were driven by the county, I was just saying there needs to be more input, and I think you said that later in your comments that we'd be looking for input from others, and including the county. So I'm just clarifying that that I just feel, again, that we need to get those inputs in and then formulate the final product of what we're taking forward.
Okay, thank you. Any Councillor Ring?
Thank you very much, Mayor Hamlin. I'm going to support this. And the two items that were brought up were two items that I looked at very closely and had some I'm not going to say concerns because I agree with them, but it looks like some people are reading them differently than others. We start with the one with the our own autonomy. I think when we're making a wish list, that's what we were asked to do. What are you going to be when you grow up? And that's part of a wish list. If we don't mention it now, as the deputy mayor said, well, that's a given that we can do it anyways. Well, what's it hurt to put it down and listed in the items that we were put together? And the other one with the assistant, I don't see anywhere where this reference to the provincial facilitator other than for assistance. And then anything after that doesn't mean a whole lot, that they have the power to do what they want to do with outside of working with us on it. So I don't have a problem with either one of those comments, and I can endorse the motion as it's written.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Jeffrey.
Thank you, Mayor Hamlin. So just to clarify, I'm saving some comments until we're going to sever them out, and I'll just speak to them within context of when they come up. That
All right.
I assume that's still going to be okay. Otherwise, I better jump in.
That's fine.
Thanks.
Okay, so we'll get into the individual comments, but I'll just say that with respect to the general comments that have been made and the fact there's been no notice to the public, certainly we all recognize the province has only given us, I don't know, 10 or 12 days to pull a position together. And it is very unfortunate that we haven't had time to think about this in great detail, although without substantial number of studies that might justify, going into deeper positions on any of these. I think staff's done a fantastic job of setting out sort of big picture, what kind of things should we be thinking about as we evolve as a larger community. In 2019, when the province appointed the provincial facilitators, there was quite a bit of consultation with Collingwood, with the mayor and perhaps CAO at the time. There was no discussion at council about what the position of the community would be, and no even hint of the public had weighing in. So I do say that even though we haven't had a lot of time for public input, if we do get into any of these things in our future, we will certainly be engaging in lots of public input. And I don't think it's wrong for us to be saying, this is where we are today, but hey, province, we do talk to 5 other municipalities, and we are trying to do things together where it's efficient to do so. And who knows what the future will be. Maybe we'll need your help as we go along to figure this out. We maybe will need greater autonomy. And as you may know, both Aurelia and Barrie sit at the county council table sometimes because they're what I would call a separated city. So they take advantage of some county services and others they're handling themselves. So they're not there for all of the business. And so when we talk about greater autonomy, maybe, I don't know, maybe that's one route we'd like to think about. So what we're saying here is just some things where we feel we could go in the future as the province wants to get, more involved in having discussions with us, and our adjoining communities are more ready. I would say no one's ready at this stage of who we talk to on a regular basis to say, let's start joining in and let's get rid of the Simcoe County. or Grey County. No one is talking about that. So now I'm going to go through each one. So the first one is town has no concerns with the existing municipal structure, has a close relationship with the county and local municipalities in our area. Any comments on that? Yeah. Okay, so our clerk has suggested that the first bullet be tied in with the paragraph above. So just to be clear, I'll read that in. Therefore, be it resolved that Council of the Town of Collingwood herein endorses the following as the town's official position to be articulated by the mayor or her designate. 1, the Town of Collingwood has no concerns with the existing municipal structure and has a close relationship with the county and local municipalities in our area. Any comments on that? All those in favor? And that's unanimous. 2, Collingwood is looking ahead. In 25 years, our population will be between 40,000 and 50,000 people, and anticipate that we will evolve within the Simcoe County structure. Yes, Councillor Jeffrey.
Just a really small thing, because my heart always does a jump when I look at that will be between 40 and 50. I'm wondering if we could eliminate the word will and put is forecasted to be.
Okay, so I've got that motion to amend on the table. A seconder for that, Councillor Houston. Thank you. Any comment? Yeah, all those in favor of the amendment? That's unanimous. Thank you. Any other comments on that paragraph? All those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. Number 3, inasmuch as we are content to work collaboratively now, we can see a day when the town may wish for a structure with greater autonomy for town-delivered services. Comments? Councillor Jeffrey.
Thank you, Mayor Hamlin. So I didn't read as much into it as the deputy mayor in terms of the greater autonomy, but I kind of came up with a combined wording for 3 and 4 that I think if you read between the lines, you would get it. But I thought it was more of a positive spin that, and here it is. We will continue to build in collaboration with our neighboring Simcoe County municipalities, including other South Georgian Bay municipalities in Grey County, to meet the many needs across our region, with a goal to avoiding duplicate investments in infrastructure and services and maximizing effectiveness in how we serve our taxpayers. And I, whatever form that takes going forward, I kind of felt like it, I just felt more comfortable with wording those 2 bullets into that one.
I think I need to hear it again.
Yeah, and okay, yeah, I can do it.
Thank you.
We will continue to build in collaboration with our neighboring Simcoe County municipalities, including other South Georgian Bay municipalities in Grey County, to meet the many needs across our region, with a goal to avoiding duplicate investments in infrastructure and services and maximizing effectiveness in how we serve our taxpayers.
Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Potts? Okay. Yes, Councillor Ring.
Thank you. I'm kind of confused because I think the Councillor Jeffrey is combining the 4th and 5th bullets. And we were dealing with the 3rd one. She said you could read between the lines. Well, I guess I'm not very good at reading between the lines because I didn't see any
some lines.
I open, sorry, through you, Mayor Hamlin.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess I'm dealing with the 3 bullets, because what I'm saying is that I didn't have as determined to take as the deputy mayor, but I do believe that that wording allows us to take it and provide the flexibility that the other councillors were referring to. So it would be looking at replacing 2, 3, and 3, 4, and 5 with that one.
Okay, so you're suggesting as an amendment that we eliminate 3, 4, and 5 and instead put in, and do you want to read that out one more time? And the clerk Almus will just type that out. Oh, you have it there. Okay, thank you.
We will continue to build in collaboration with our neighboring Simcoe County municipalities, including other South Georgian Bay municipalities in Grey County, to meet the many needs across our region, with a goal to avoiding duplicate investments in infrastructure and services and maximizing effectiveness in how we serve our taxpayers.
Is there a seconder for that? Okay, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Baines.
Just suggesting potentially a grammatical change there. After work with our partner municipalities in Simcoe, then you reference the other municipalities. I think if you put as well as, because otherwise I think it reads right now that, I don't know the specific, which is modifying which, it separates it, if you will, the other municipalities that are not within Simcoe County.
Okay, Clerk Almus is making a suggestion here that the motion we've put on the floor is all these things, and that we probably should be voting on the original ones first, and if it's defeated, then introduce an amendment. Okay, so what I'm going to do then is we'll deal with 3. And I'll just add my own comment at this point, which is I do agree with Councillor Ring's comments that I see 3 as a bit of a standalone, and that 4 and 5 are a combination of Councillor Jeffrey's wording that she's put forward here. What I like about 3 is it indicates that in the future we may wish for a structure with greater autonomy, which is different than what 4 and 5 speak to, which is collaboration with other municipalities. And it's certainly on my mind whether we will want to have, because that is one of the options, right? Will we have greater autonomy within Simcoe County, like an Aurelia does? So I sort of like having that as an option out there for our future. It may not be somewhere that we'll walk down that path. It's really not for me to say. But I like that as an option. So I'm going to then say, if there's no other comments on 3, we'll have a vote on 3. You have a comment? Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mayor Hamlin. And I appreciate your position on it, but mine continues to be the same. I don't want to see it in there because we have not looked into separated city in any way, shape, or form. I'd have a hard time believing that it would be something that could be done efficiently and effectively. But I referred to a little bit earlier about the fact that we got to look back at comments that have already been made to the Heritage Committee. And I looked at some of your responses in your presentation, Mayor Hamlin, and one of them was we just need that extra support from the province to be able to deliver the services efficiently for our area, and that we're a region. So I don't want to put anything about autonomy into this particular one if the idea is that we're going out there thinking along the collective for the South Georgian Bay area.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Mayor Hamlin. I think with number 3, it kind of covers everything, but the key word in here is may. And I think we have to look at that. It's not making a commitment one way or another. It's just basically covering us in case we do. To me, that's the key word that's in there.
Thank you. Councillor Ring, did you have your card up?
Basically the same thing. The wording there is not saying we're definitely going to do that, but it's not. It's leaving the door open that in the future, if we may look at the benefits to the town of Collingwood as opposed to being completely county structured. There's a reason why Barrie and Aurelia have done it forever and haven't gone back. So we should try to, if it comes to that day, but we don't have to because the word may is in there, and that doesn't make it a definite statement.
Okay, thank you. So I'll bring this to a vote now. All those, sorry, did you have something else you wish to say?
Well, I always amend things I'm going to vote against, but the word that bothers me in there is wish. And I think if we were saying may need to pursue a structure with greater autonomy, it would make it better than I just don't think we should be wishing for things. I think we maybe needed to required to pursue. It wouldn't be based on a wish. It would be based on some facts and realities of infrastructure.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ring.
Again, if there was any word that did bother me in there, and that was exactly the word I was thinking of too, was wish. It makes it a little more definite. But I think the wording that came from Councillor Jeffries would be acceptable in my point of view anyways.
Okay, so the words were the day may come when the town may need to pursue. Okay, do I have a seconder for that amendment? Councillor Baines? Okay, any further comments? Deputy Mayor Fryer.
That gives me more of a comfort level too. It seems to me like this particular one must have been something that was discussed in the in-camera session, and there may have been reason put forward on why it needed to be here. But I will support the amendment.
Okay, any more comments on the amendment? All those in, yes, Councillor Doherty.
Thank you. I cannot support the amendment. I actually see the insertion of the word need as a stronger possible commitment to some sort of autonomous operations in the future than the way it is stated now. So I will not support the amendment.
Okay, thank you. If there's no other comments, I'll just say I'm not so concerned about the words need because it would come out of some greater analysis undertaken by our community that would translate into a need that we would then vote on. So I'm sort of okay with that. So I'll vote in favor of the amendment. All those in favor? And opposed. And one opposed. Thank you. And then on the clause itself, with those words, all those in favor? And opposed? None. Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you. And then 4 and 5. So we had, did you type the words up here or not?
They mixed a little, so I don't know.
Okay.
But I do know.
Well, I wanted to just have this up there. Okay. She's going to bring up Councillor Jeffrey's type version.
Mayor Hamlin?
Yes.
And in agreement with Councillor Baines somewhat, if the word including could become as well as, I think that would solve his issue.
Could you just explain where that would go?
Yeah, so where we say we will continue to build in collaboration with our neighboring Simcoe County municipalities, as well as other South Georgian Bay municipalities in Grey County. So that word including would become as well as.
I see. And for you, how does that change the wording we've given to the clerk? Are you then happy with 4 and 5 with as it reads in the motion before council with that amendment?
No, I was amending my wording.
Your wording. Okay, thank you.
Sorry, through the chair. So the original mover and seconder of the entire motion is Councillor Doherty and Councillor Ring. If Councillor Doherty and Councillor Ring are satisfied with a friendly amendment to change it to as well as instead of including, we don't have to do an amendment. If we want to do a formal amendment to delete including and put as well as, we can do that as well.
I think I'll just clarify, Clerk Almas. I think Councillor Jeffrey's intention in changing those words, we're changing the words in her motion as opposed to what
we can, sorry, through you, Mayor Hamlin, if I could just clarify with the clerk. Yeah, I would like as well as in mine as well, but it suits for here as well. But we have to defeat both of these to get to the joint wording. So I think the idea is for people to be looking at that joint wording. I just think it's a much more positive and more just a better way to proceed with advocacy in terms of our intent.
Okay, so we have on the screen then Councillor Jeffrey's proposed wording. Does anyone need me to read that out? So what we're going to do is put on the floor item 3 and 4 to delete, and then a motion
4 and 5.
Sorry, 4 and 5, thank you. 4 and 5 to delete, and if that passes, then we would put Councillor Jeffrey's wording up in replacement. Is that okay? Okay, so we have a go from Clerk Almas. So, items 4, any motions for that one? Councillor Baines.
So as I understand it, I'm moving to defeat number 4.
You could, yes.
Or, yeah. Then I so move.
Okay, seconder.
Not defeat.
Delete, delete.
Delete, sorry.
Okay, so to delete, I'm going to do them both together, 4 and 5. Okay, delete 4 and 5. Councillor Jeffrey, seconded by Councillor Houston. Any comments? All those in favor? Yeah, you have to vote for it. Okay, that's unanimous. And then Councillor Jeffrey's wording would become number 4. And I'll just read it. We will continue to build in collaboration with our neighboring South Simcoe County municipalities, including takeout, including, and the word is as well as. Thank you. Other South Georgian Bay municipalities in Grey County to meet the many needs across our region with a goal to avoiding duplicate investments in infrastructure and services and maximizing the effectiveness of how we serve our taxpayers. So we have a mover. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Baines, any further discussion on this? All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. The next one is number 6. As we move forward, the assistance of the provincial facilitator or other resources and governance could be advantageous to develop a coordinated multi-municipality growth plan as a foundation for larger investments such as infrastructure. Any comments on this one? Yes, Deputy Mayor.
I'd like to, I just find anytime provincial facilitators being mentioned, it really concerns me. So I'm going to propose an amendment and that provincial facilitator be replaced by province, and just say, as we move forward, the assistance of the province or other resources and governance could be advantageous to develop a coordinated multi-municipality growth plan as a foundation for larger investments such as infrastructure. I'll look for a seconder, I guess.
Okay, Councillor Jeffrey. I'll just comment that this is the role that the province has created now to assist municipalities in working on major issues together. And there's 4 provincial facilitators. That's their full-time job. So I think it makes good sense to have that in here. We're using the words assistance of, provincial facilitator, or other resources and governance. So I think we've left ourselves open to any thing that might be out there, but specifically identifying the resource that the province has out there right now. So I'll not support that motion. Oh, did we get a seconder for you?
Councillor Jeffrey.
Oh, Councillor Jeffrey, yes. Yes, just I'll come back to you. Would there be anyone else who wants to speak to this? Okay, Councillor Baines?
I hear your point, and actually I support this motion as written here, including the word provincial facilitator, because at this point, since the role has been defined by the province, and there are the 4 with that role, then I think it's appropriate to reference that, because it would be at this point, who knows how the government might change that, the mechanism to use to leverage these resources. So I'd support it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak to this? Okay. Oh, sorry. One moment.
My apologies for clarification. So I have the one to amend to province versus provincial facilitator. And was there another amendment that was part of that? What's the one? Okay.
That's the one. Yeah. Thank you. Go ahead, Deputy
Thank
Mayor.
you, Mayor Hamlin. I know how everybody here reads this, but there's going to be other people that read it and perhaps take my interpretation when it says multi-municipality. So I was looking at it as I could accept it if it said province because it's all encompassing. And if the government chose to do something specific in our general area, then it would be brought forward. But as I said, with my history and background in dealing with the whole matter about the provincial facilitator and the position that's been taken at the county level and those types of things, I'm strongly suggesting that the wording be province and not provincial facilitator. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. All those in favor of the amendment? That's 2. Those opposed? Sorry, that was 3. Councillor Ring, you voted for it, and opposed is, so that's defeated. Thank you. Yes, Councillor Jeffrey.
Thank you, Mayor Hamlin. So I think for me, the wording is worded such that maybe a little more targeted that we're going to use a provincial facilitator to currently address some things we have going on in a multi-growth plan. And I think if it were worded to say, as we move forward, the continued availability of a provincial facilitator or other resources for all Ontario municipalities could be advantageous to develop a coordinated where needed, some such thing. I think to bring it down to us specifically is kind of a bit of a threatening wording per se, or just a forecasting wording. So I would just like to soften it just a little bit in the absence of being able to amend it otherwise, to say that the continued availability of the assistance of provincial facilitators or other resources could be advantageous to all provincial or all Ontario communities, something like that. In other words, we support provincial facilitators or resources in place, but we're not being so targeted as just for us.
Okay, would there be a seconder for that? Councillor Baines. Okay, I'll just say that I think everyone knows, and I wouldn't say we'd have to have any discussion at this parliamentary committee, that all Ontario communities can take advantage of a provincial facilitator. I think the point of having this in here is to say that Collingwood may see the need with other municipalities to approach with other municipalities or not, but it's just say the town of Collingwood may see a need to ask the provincial facilitator at some point to assist us. And I don't mind putting that out there right now. I think it's a good idea. The province has this legislative committee to hear what we're thinking. And to me, that's a big point. And we may not want to ultimately, but I think we may. And to just say, all Ontario communities can avail themselves of that doesn't add anything in my respectful view. So that's my view on it. Yes, Deputy Mayor.
I continue to not be comfortable, though, if we haven't even had any discussions with the other municipalities. And I think of things like municipal enterprise corporations, which doesn't even get mentioned in here in anything that we're kind of proposing as a concept. And I think that's the most readily available tool we have to work together with our neighbors and not have to worry about boundaries, because it's just dealing with particular infrastructure. Innisfil's a very good example of a working MEC. And so I continue to have to take the position that I'm not going to be accepting this particular bullet with the provincial facilitator reference in there.
Any mention of it. I got it. Okay, that's great. Thank you. Sorry, go ahead. It was Councillor Baines. Yeah. Okay. Okay, we'll just take a moment to read the amendment. I think there's some words missing in there. I'll let you, Councillor Jeffrey, suggest what they are. Well, what I had was just not to be, it says could be advantageous. I think the words I heard was for all Ontario communities.
Mayor Hamlin just moved that down to after advantageous to, or for all Ontario municipalities.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Or to develop, sorry, in front of to. There we go.
Okay, all those in favor of the amendment? That's 2. All those opposed? And that fails. Thank you. Now we'll deal with the wordings as we have before us. All those in favor? And those opposed? And that passes. Thank you. And the last point then is, finally, we strongly believe that the province, county, and local municipalities must develop a new financial framework that funds and enables us where we are best placed to successfully deliver services locally. Any comments on this one? Councillor Jeffrey.
Let's go for everything. So this one is built very much on what AMO and FCM have already been advocating for. And I think it's really critically important that we make the link to that so that you win a lot of points, which have already been made to both to the province and to the feds for that matter. So I think finally, consistent with AMO and FCM advocacy, we strongly believe that all orders of government must develop anew. And I think this moves to a lot of what AMO and FCM have messaging as well, is the province and the feds have to work together in a timely manner to facilitate our ability to be successful at the municipal level. So just really a simple change to finally, consistent with AMO and FCM advocacy, we strongly believe that all orders of government must develop, and then it carries on the same.
Would there be a, sorry, Councillor Doherty? Well, let's get this on the floor first. Would there be a seconder for this? Councillor Houston, thank you. Councillor Doherty.
Thank you. I would like to suggest a further amendment, if I could. And I am supportive of...
Excuse me, we have to do one at a time.
Okay.
So hold that thought. We will come back to you. Unless it's an amendment to her amendment.
It's, yeah, it is an amendment to Councillor Jeffrey's amendment.
Okay.
And I think she'll be,
nicely.
I think she'll be okay with that.
Okay, let's see if we could be friendly, and because
Yeah.
it's all.
So what I was going to say is I'm very much in support of the notion of referencing all orders of government and referencing consistency of our stance with FCM and AMO. But I also think that it's important for us to emphasize that we're not necessarily in support of the financial framework to deliver services as it exists today. And I would be, I would suggest that we could qualify that a little bit better by saying, all orders of government must develop a new financial framework that funds and enables each to deliver, to successfully deliver each where they are best suited to successfully deliver services locally. So this is not...
I think that's quite a different point,
Yeah.
because you know, from my perspective, I don't care about the province and the federal government. Well, no, I care about them, but I care about them a lot. But for us and what we can achieve, I want to make sure that the local governments are getting the funds they need to do what they need to do. And I think that's not amending hers. That's a separate amendment. So we're going to come back to you. Okay, so just dealing with the amendment before us, that it says finally consistent with AMO and FCM advocacy, we strongly believe that all orders of government must deliver a new financial framework that funds enables us where we are best placed to successfully deliver services locally. Any more comments on this? Councillor Baines.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm going to speak or vote against this. I think Councillor Jeffrey's amendment is well intentioned. I just worry that this being a provincial form, it almost allows the province, I won't say off the hook completely, but the focus goes away, in my opinion, to other IE levels, such as the feds that could be brought in and such. And I would rather, since this is a provincial forum, keep the focus as it is with the province specifically. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And I guess the wording that would come out is that the province, county, and local municipalities must develop a new financial framework. So that's quite different from all orders of government, right? Okay, just keep that in mind. Okay, so any other comments on this? Yes, Deputy Mayor.
I'm just going to, in regards to Councillor Baines' position, we've been saying for some time now it needs all levels of government in regards to housing infrastructure. And I think it's important to include FCM here because we want funding from the federal as well as the provincial. I recognize this is a provincial body that's hearing things, but they too are working or trying to work in conjunction with the FCM or as federal government. And so I'd want to see it in there. Thank you.
So you're speaking in favor of the amendment? Sir, when you said you wanted to see it in there, I wasn't sure if I had missed something or if you're speaking in favor of the amendment.
No, I'm in favor of the amendment. Thank you, Mayor Hanlon, for clarifying.
Thank you. Councillor Doherty.
Thank you, Mayor. So I am struggling to support this amendment. Not that I have an issue with it in principle, but I think the way it is worded suggests that we as a municipality are satisfied with the, excuse me, downloading of services that we have been experiencing over the last 10 years. And that is why I had wanted to reinforce the notion that each order of government should be delivering what they can deliver best and not download it all to municipalities. That's my struggle.
Yeah, Councillor Jeffrey.
Thank you, Mayor Hamlin. I'd just like to address that directly because both AMO and FCM have been very clear that no one's satisfied with the status quo. No one. So I don't know how you could misinterpret the wording of consistent with AMO and FCM advocacy to be consistent with any kind of downloading. It's the whole bane of our existence currently in our funding. So I think that it's a brand now that FCM has created with AMO in terms of a new municipal growth framework that everybody is very familiar with and no one is happy with status quo.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. If there's no more comments, we'll vote on the amendment. All those in favor? And opposed?
No.
Okay, we have one opposed. Thank you.
No,
and
not opposed.
Not opposed.
No, just struggling to support.
No, there was one opposed, two down from you. Yeah, thank you though. And then are there any other amendments to this? Oh, we didn't vote on it? Oh, but I just wanted to make sure that Councillor Doherty didn't have a further amendment she wanted to make. Okay, I'm not seeing anything further. Okay, so we'll vote on this as amended. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, thank you for your hard work, Council, getting through that. Yes.
I wanted to just note that the Heritage Committee is at this point in time is about housing and achieving housing targets, and about infrastructure. And I think it's the fact that housing isn't even mentioned in any of our bullets is something that we maybe should think of. And I honestly don't have anything wording wise in mind, but I just look at it and think the Heritage Committee, as I said, they're about the housing and the housing targets. You look at the questions that are being asked by the participants of the committee. Most of them are earmarked to that, and I just wonder if there's some wording we could put in that would be our overarching position about the housing goals. Warden Clark mentions in one of his responses about the fact that in Simcoe County, and generally everything with what we've got approved, we can come close to reaching our targets with that alone. So I'm kind of looking to the other members, and maybe they don't feel the same as me, but I just sit and wonder if there shouldn't be something that specifically mentions about housing.
Yeah, if I could address that, Deputy Mayor. The first whereas clause in this motion explains why we're here now, and it's because the province wanted to hear about Ontario's fastest growing regions to eliminate unnecessary or duplicative barriers preventing towns and cities from hitting their housing targets. So what I would suggest is, as a bullet number 8, that if you're happy, I'll come up with some wording with staff, but we'll say something to the effect of, all of the above in support of eliminating unnecessary or duplicative barriers that would prevent us from hitting our housing targets, or something about housing. I can come up with a last paragraph. I'm going to speak to it anyway. I can stick housing in, but what's point well taken that if we don't want it just in our whereas clauses, we can put it in the remarks, because the committee is looking, the whole province is focused at this stage of the life of the province is to get housing built, and it is the purpose of this committee is to make sure that our governments are organized correctly to deliver what housing is possible to be delivered. So anyway, I can get that in my remarks if everyone's happy, but if you want to come up with some words, I'm happy to. Councillor Ring, did you?
Thank you very much. I was going to bring in that the whereas. I personally don't think it's necessary anywhere else, but I don't have an issue if you want to put it down as another bullet, because you're just basically repeating what that first whereas is anyways. The motion is in its entirety starts at that first whereas and finishes after the bullets. So anything after that should be included in that first whereas, but I mean, and at the end is not the end of the world. And I agree with Deputy Mayor Pryor that we maybe should mention it. I just thought it was mentioned, that's all.
Thank you. Yes, Deputy Mayor.
I'm completely comfortable with you working on the wording for that, Mayor Hamlin. I do also believe strongly that municipal enterprise corporations are something that we should be considering in the South Georgian Bay region. So if there was any way possible that you could feel comfortable about wording that captured that too, that would be great. But the initial and most important is about the mention of housing. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so having finished with that item, we'll now go to item 6.1. This is an in-camera motion before us, and I'll be looking for a mover and a seconder. The motion is as follows. Whereas the clerk hereby concurs the reasons for the in-camera session have been duly reviewed and considered, and the matters are authorized under the exception provisions to conduct a closed session in accordance with the Municipal Act prior to proceeding into closed session. Therefore, be it resolved that this council proceeds in camera in order to address a matter pertaining to the security of the property of the town or local board, for B, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including town or local board employees, B, litigation or potential litigation, including matters for administrative tribunals affecting the town or local board, that's A. And lastly, the receiving of advice that's subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, and that's both A and B. So the items for discussion are A, Bridgewater Extension, Ontario Land Tribunal request, and B, camping, trespass, and moving of personal belongings, unhoused persons. Some mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Potts, seconded by Councillor Perry. Any comments? All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. So at this stage, we will go in camera, and if possible, we will have a rise as well as a report. Thank you. Okay, I'm looking for a mover and a seconder for a motion to rise from in camera. Councillor Potts, seconded by Councillor Ring. All those in favor? Thank you. And by brief report then from our in-camera session, the owner of the project known as Bridgewater in our community has applied to the Ontario Land Tribunal seeking an extension of their draft plan of subdivision approval. This plan has expired and been renewed 7 times over the last 20 years or so. So we did speak in camera with our solicitor and senior staff and have given instructions on opposing that extension at the OLT, request for an extension. And secondly, we did give instructions to our staff to work with our solicitor on some of the crisis issues related to having unhoused in our community. And with that in mind, I think we're ready to adjourn. Confirmatory bylaw. Thank you, Councillor Jeffrey. Let me go back in my agenda. Okay, the recommendation that bylaw number 2024-049 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the regular meeting of council held June 24, 2024 be enacted and passed this 24th day of June, 2024. Councillor Baines has moved. Councillor Doherty has seconded. All those in favor? Okay. Councillor Potts has moved an adjournment. All those in favor? And those who have to run off to their children's graduation, like Councillor Potts, have a wonderful evening. And we'll see you all next time.